How's it going, guys? Jack and Matty with the Toaster Bros, and today we're going to be taking a look at a new old stock graphics card that's $130 and it's pretty decent.
This is the 51 Risk RX 5600 XT, and we continue our journey into the unknown of these really weird graphics cards that honestly deliver great value for money, but you really don't know which brands to trust. But in today's video, we're going to showcase the 51 Risk model right here that honestly might be a good one to go for. But before we dive into today's video, let's hear a word from today's sponsor.
Today's video is brought to you by Jawa, your one-stop shop to buy, build, and sell your gaming PC. If you plan on upgrading your graphics card after watching today's video, then Jawa is the perfect place for you. Jawa gives you the ability to buy or sell fully built gaming PCs, graphics cards, CPUs, and even more. Anything you want for your PC build, Jawa has you covered with great pricing. We here at the Toasty Bros preach the importance of the used PC hardware market and the value you can get when buying used, especially with graphics cards, and Jawa makes it easy to find great options at great prices from a wide range of sellers. So do yourself a favor, the next time you're looking to build your next gaming PC, head on over to jawa.gg and take a look at the options they have to offer. Big shout out to Jawa for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get into the video, shall we?
So yes, you heard it right. We're about to take 51 Risk with this graphics card. Not really, we're just gonna plop it in and we're gonna test some games on it and see how it works. We have our usual test bench that we'll talk about in a second, but first, Matt's gonna go ahead and go over some of the specs of this 51 Risk 5600 XT.
Now, as we mentioned, we bought this 5600 XT from AliExpress for about $130. They average anywhere between 130 to about 140 bucks. If you're curious about finding some of the best priced options, check the link in the description down below. But this exact model is like any other 5600 XT. We have 6 gigs of GDDR6 memory, 2,304 cores. It is a Navi 10 GPU, and it's also 7 nanometer. It was released in January 21st of 2020 with a launch price of $279. It is a PCI Gen 4 card by 16, which is kind of sad that that's a good feature to mention. But you know what? Nowadays, it's good to mention it has full 16 PCI Gen 4. And it comes with a TDP of 150 watts with a recommended power supply of about a 500 watt power supply. So this thing is pretty power efficient, has some good performance, and can be had on the used market, by the way, for around $120. So you are paying a little bit of a premium to get the card from 51 Risk that has the new PCB, but the used GPU. These new PCBs allow the card to theoretically last a bit longer because it's all fixed up and it's not like a used mining card, but there is a inherent risk, with buying these cards because you don't really know these companies. They're new to the space and you don't really know if you're getting the best deal or the best warranty. But in today's video, we're going to slap the graphics card in this test bench, see how it performs, check the thermal, see if this thing crashes and takes normal drivers, and hopefully everything works out great and we can recommend this for you. But let's talk about the test bench real quick.
So for our controlled test bench environment, we have a very high airflow system featuring the Ryzen 7 5700X 240mm deep cool liquid cooler. We have an Asus TUF B550M, 16 gigs of PNY Accelerate 3600 MHz RGB RAM. We have a 1TB Team Group NVMe SSD. We have an XPG 650 watt power supply, and then we have a very nice deep cool case with lots of airflow. So now that we talked about the graphics card and the specs of this gaming PC, let's go ahead and throw it on the test bench.
All right, guys, now that we've finished benchmarking the 5600 XT, let's go ahead and talk about what games we tested it in and show you guys the performance. So the games we decided to test are as follows. We have Cyberpunk, Forza Horizon 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Warzone 2.0, Hogwarts Legacy, and of course, Fortnite. Now, obviously with this card from AliExpress, there's an inherent risk when buying from there because you never know what's actually gonna show up and you're gonna wait multiple months for a chance of this card not actually showing up or showing up damaged. But we're happy to report the packaging and everything on this card was very solid, and the card showed up looking okay, minus one issue. One of the screws was kind of loose on the I/O bracket when I unboxed it. As you can see during the unboxing footage, I had to get a screwdriver and tighten that down. But other than that, it's solid. It was just a slight loose screw. So your mileage may vary, you may not deal with this issue, but we did encounter it, so just want to mention it in this video. Let's go ahead and talk about the testing numbers. Now, first up in Cyberpunk at 1080p high preset with the balanced FSR, we ended up getting an average of 75 FPS, a minimum of 46, and a max of 116. These numbers show that this card is what it is, a 5600 XT with 6 gigs of VRAM that is more than capable of playing the latest titles at 1080p at 60 plus FPS, and I think at the $130 to $140 price point, it's still a very competitive card, and these things are much newer than something like, let's say, an RX 580 or 590 out there, so I feel much better about you making a long-term investment with this card and getting good driver support later down the line to be able to play any game you throw at it, especially if it includes FSR, because FSR has become become such an important tool for these older GPUs to be able to play games that normally they wouldn't be able to play. Upscaling technology is making it so much better, and honestly, it's getting so close to looking like native that it's a no-brainer to turn it on. Now let's talk about Forza Horizon 5, 1080p high settings once again, and we actually got a 107 FPS average. Again, a pretty demanding AAA title that this card has no problem playing. With these FPS numbers, you could easily stretch into 1440p gaming if you want to, albeit probably like 60 FPS, but if you do work with FSR as well, you should have no problems getting about 70 to 80 as well, getting close to a high refresh rate experience for a card that's $130. Really can't complain too much. Now, I do always like to mention what CPU I would pair with a graphics card like this, and we do actually have a build guide that's already planned before recording this video that's going to feature the Ryzen 5 5500, and it's going to be a $500 PC, so stay tuned for that one. But you can go that route. You could spend a little bit more for the 5600 to get the Gen 4 support, which would be beneficial for this Gen 4 card, or you could dive into the budget section, go i3 10100, i3 12100. Those will all be great options for PCs anywhere between the $500 range to all the way down to about the $450 range, and the performance you're getting, that's a pretty good value for money. Now let's talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. Balanced preset 1080p, the settings will be shown on screen here. We end up getting a minimum of 21 FPS, a max of 130, an average of 82. There are a few stutters here and there running the balanced preset, but overall I think the built-in benchmark shows that this is a capable card for playing games like Red Dead and any other really demanding AAA title at least 60 FPS 1080p with modified settings. Now, one thing that's pretty underrated about these cards is it is capable of doing live streaming, albeit it is not a great encoder like the NVENC encoder. AMD does have their own encoder you can use. So if you're getting into entry-level live streaming and you don't want to spend the $160 for a new 1650, which is the cheapest card right now that you can get from NVIDIA that has an NVENC encoder, new that is, we're not talking about used market, new, then yeah, you should definitely opt for something like this. And if you're just getting into streaming to begin with, AMD has made a lot of improvements, but you really don't need the best of the best to get started with live streaming. You can make those upgrades later on. Now let's dive into some live action gameplay. We have Warzone 2.0 Resurgence on the balanced preset with quality FSR, and this was very impressive. We got 130 plus FPS. Yes, Resurgence isn't as demanding as the main game, but to be honest, who really is playing the main Warzone anyways? A lot of people like playing Resurgence, so I want to benchmark Resurgence with this graphics card, and it shows we are very GPU bottlenecked in this benchmark, so we're fully maximizing the performance of this 5600 XT. So if you're getting into some competitive Warzone 1080p high refresh rate, you'll have no problems whatsoever, especially with the pricing of high refresh rate monitors coming down. You can make a full setup for about $600 or $700. That would be a way better value in my opinion compared to a console. Now another game we decided to test with Hogwarts Legacy, which is a game that really uses FSR very well. At 1080p high settings with quality FSR, we got 60 plus FPS with 90s at times. This was a game where we started to get a few dips here and there, and I do think it's because of the 6 gigs of VRAM. Some of these newer games that are coming out, even at 1080p, you're really gonna want at least 8 gigs of VRAM. So that's where this card is gonna be hindered a little bit, but at the $130 price point, I think that compromise is well worth it, especially if you know what kind of games you're gonna play. As always, we'll be benchmarking these cards in the future when newer games do come out, so we can see what the absolute limits are with this architecture and the 6 gigs of VRAM, but I'm pretty confident saying at 1080p with most games out there, 90% of games, this card will be more than adequate for your use cases. And last but certainly not least, we decided to test Fortnite, which I do have to give a disclaimer. Once again, this is a more CPU dependent game than it is GPU dependent, but we are running on normal DX11 not performance settings to really push this graphics card to its limits. And we ended up running at 1080p, medium high settings with quality TSR, which is the upscaling in Fortnite. And we got 100 plus FPS with some major dips and stutters will be first dropped in. McAllister will show on screen here that we were lagging a bit when we first started running around, but as we got into the map and things loaded in, it started to settle out. That's pretty common Fortnite behavior. The first launch on a new system or a system that hasn't launched Fortnite in a long time after an update can be a little bit stuttery, but on the next launch it was working perfectly fine. And just for the sake of it, we went native resolution, we turned off the upscaling, and we were getting about 80 to 90 FPS, dips into the 60s and 70s here and there, but the game looked absolutely great. I would just run FSR or TSR in Fortnite because honestly, it just makes the gameplay that much better and gets you closer to high refresh rate without having to do any other weird setting changes. And overall, I think this upscaling technology is making these graphics cards, as I mentioned multiple times because I absolutely love it, making them much more prevalent and will last a lot longer so you don't have to spend your money on a new GPU. So that pretty much wraps up the benchmarks of this graphics card. It is a 5600 XT. It's a legit card, so it gets a pass from us. And really for the price point and the availability, where you can buy them on eBay used if you want to, or you could dive into AliExpress like we did in today's video. And the specific model from 51 Risk did fare pretty well. There were some times the temperatures got a little bit warm into the high 70s and 80s, but this generation of card did run a little bit warm. But overall, this is a really well-built card. I like the all-black design, and I think it'll fit very nicely in this PC build we're planning here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, now that we finished the benchmarking section of today's video, how to bring Jackson back in here to wrap this video out real quick.
Alright guys, well we just got done testing the graphics card, and there's some good news. It took normal drivers, it played games pretty well, and to give you guys a little bit of a comparison, it's kind of like an RTX 2060 or like an RTX 3050 in terms of its gaming performance. Obviously it is a little bit older, so you have to keep that in mind. AMD does love to run their drivers for a long time. I'd expect this graphics card to still have driver support for probably at least another 3 or 4 years, but don't quote me on that. So overall, we do recommend this card for 130 bucks.
Yeah, and if you want to go on the local used market as well, that's obviously a good idea if you don't want to deal with the long shipping times of AliExpress. And occasionally these cards pop up on Amazon as well for the same price with Prime shipping, with that 30-day Amazon return policy that you can take advantage of. But in terms of buying this card right now, if you want to check the link in the description down below, we do recommend it. It will be an affiliate link. It will help us out. Let us know if there's any other weird GPUs you see over on AliExpress or on Amazon you want to see benchmarked. We've gone through a lot of them recently, and there might be some other ones out there that you're curious about, so let us know down below.
So as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
So we'll actually be doing a build guide with this graphics card pretty soon, but we're also going to be selling that PC once it's done over at PCBros.tech.
PCBros.tech, we sell gaming PCs, we sell gaming laptops, and we sell merch. There's merch all over the place. PC Bros and Toasty Bros merch. Use code ToastyBros2 and check out to save 2% on your next purchase. See you guys later. Goodbye.
Peace out.